Hello and welcome to the second episode of this series. I try to optimize a few things, and from now on also I will leave a sort of a dictionary in the comments. And I will also add timestamps. First we will define core functions and game states and then analyze the gameplay. Basically we are trying to create a very reliable analyzing pattern, and two pieces of that analyzing pattern will be core functions and game states. And basically we will ask ourselves what kind of core functions were used, how did they affect the game states, were there better options of core functions. And by the way, I will make a video soon about value, elixir value, and it will be very important regarding gameplay, but I will touch a little bit on it today. So let's get into it. So whenever people are trying to optimize their game plan, it's almost always looking at core functions and the effects on the game states, and that's the way we optimize any game plan. So it will seem a little bit unnecessarily in depth, but it really matters the most. The first core function is damage, which is basically just lowering the HP of a card, of an active card. Then we have tank, which is purposefully placing something to eat or take damage instead of a different active card. Or tower. Then we have position influence, which we will call in short form PO-in, and which is about controlling the position of enemy troops by using the core functions kite, which is basically placing a card within the attention radius of a different enemy card, and which causes then the position of the enemy card to be influenced. Then we also have focus in, but I will mention it later, it's a bit complicated to explain. Then we also have push, which slightly changes the position of an enemy card, which can be still very useful. Drag, which is very useful especially to activate your king tower, which can be mainly performed through the fisherman or tornado. And we also have block, which is basically blocking the path of a card. And to perform block we need to know a lot about how much certain cards weigh, because certain cards are heavier than others, and they can't be pushed off that easily and stuff like that, but we will not go too hard into that topic. Then we also have interval influence, which is manipulating movement speed, attack time, but not land time. Movement speed we all understand, it's basically how fast a card moves. For example, Hog Rider is faster than P.E.K.K.A. Then attack time is how fast the card attacks, performs the attacking pattern. So basically a P.E.K.K.A. attacks slower than a knight. And then we have land time, which is basically the amount of time it takes for a projectile most of the time to reach the target. For example, the princess shoots, she has an attack time, and then the arrows have a land time. So the core functions, the interval influence core functions are speeding, slowing, and freezing. Speeding can be performed, I think, only through the rage spell. The movement speed can also be increased through the baby dragon evolution. Then we have slowing, which can be performed through the ice wizard and also through the Evo dragon again, and some spells like earthquake, for example, or I think also the poison affects a little bit the movement speed. Then we have freeze, which basically can be performed by many different cards. For example, E-Spirit, Ice Spirit, Freeze Spell. And what I also forgot to mention is that the core function push can basically reset the attack time or cancel it which is very, very useful, and you see Hog Rider players try to do that sometimes when they are playing against a person and they place their hog, and then they try to time their log or the fireball that causes a little push at the right time, and that cancels the attack of a troop. So basically, whenever we are in whatever situation, we will always think not only which card do we play, but more fundamentally, which core function do we pick. Now let's get into the game states. The first one is damage state. How much damage did your tower take, how much the enemies, or how much HP do each one have. And the second one is elixir state, or elixir ratio, which is basically how much elixir does the opponent have and how much do you have. And then we can also define two states, or three, elixir advantage, elixir disadvantage, and elixir equal. And then we have deck configuration, which is basically how your deck is ordered. So in which order do your cards reappear, what cards do you have on your on deck. It's basically the cards that you can see right now, and the off deck is the cards that you cannot see those cards on your deck right now because you already played them, and they move from the off deck to the on deck. And there are actually two more things that are very important, but I will not go into them right now. We have core functions, we have game states, but there's also priority pyramid that I could introduce, but I won't do it now, and also fundamental parentheses. But I think for now it's enough for this video, and we will start analyzing the gameplay and use the ones that we have already added to our analyzing pattern. And I hope you all understand it, and I hope that we can learn something. And let's get finally into it. So the first core function that we will see here will be dragging, position influencing. It is the group, and the dragging will have the outcome that damage will take place on the king tower and it will be activated. They both spend about the same elixir, and the deck configuration seems for now to be good regarding the skeleton barrel, because it can almost always be used to either completely avoid damage by using the tornado, dragging it somewhere else, so not even death damage of the barrel, and even if it reaches the tower, it can kill the skeletons if the tornado touches the skeletons. To be fair though, in this matchup it seems like Mo has like 100 counters to almost every card that the opponent has. So deck configuration is definitely not on the side of the red side, so he has to try to manipulate his elixir ratio, that way he could possibly get damage. One thing that I didn't yet mention is lure. It basically this what is happening right now, placing a card into the direction, into the attention radius of a card that cares about that thing. For example, Hog Rider cares about temporary tower or normal tower, and other cards that care about troops, they can be lured through that. And there's a little bit of difference between kite and lure. So basically luring is the thing that everybody 100% understands. It's just a card being attracted to the different thing, and then that causes the position influence. So here the core function to kill the bush thing was fulfilled, and the princess will be killed. And now the Dart Goblin will destroy the temporary tower to destroy the core function, or to neutralize the core function lure, so that the skeleton barrel will go to the permanent tower. So the enemy did place wall breakers to distract the magic archer, but then Mo placed also skeletons right into the skeleton barrel after it popped, to tank and distract the skeletons, and which gave the tower more time to neutralize, and those are two other words that we can introduce. We can say tower neutralizing, and we can say elixir neutralizing, which is basically the tower neutralizing is just doing damage, you know, getting rid of threat, and elixir neutralizing is paying elixir to perform core functions. So now we will start to stop mentioning always the core functions. We will sometimes ask ourselves why exactly this, why not different core function, and when something big happens, like a big change in damage or big change in game states, then we will try to track it to the core functions. Here he used log instead of tornado because he needs the tornado for the skeleton barrel, which he does to keep a good deck configuration. Here I think Mo realized that the opponent did a mistake because he paid 3 elixir for the dart goblin, which can perform a lot more than just tanking and damage. And Mo can use the tornado to be offensive and to defend the skeleton barrel, but now that the dart goblin is gone, he can use the tornado more offensively because the dart goblin cannot threaten the goblin hut that much, and so he can just goblin hut whenever the opponent uses his skeleton barrel. So the opponent could have just placed the wall breakers in front of the king tower to tank for the permanent tower, which would have been way better. Here I think Mo goes knight to the left and skeletons to the right because the opponent has time to save the princess with his e-spirit, and the knight can survive the e-spirit. And he also logs in the very last second, I think, to give the tower a bit more time, the king tower, to shoot at the wall breakers, but I'm not so sure, maybe it would have killed it anyway. Here I think Mo places the magic archer on the right side to both damage and to have a counter push or a death push, and he also placed the goblin hut in front of him to tank in case the enemy places the dart goblin to snipe the magic archer. Here I also think he placed the drill defensively to maintain this specific deck configuration, where after the magic archer defended, he will have the drill and he can use the magic archer to counter push and then the drill. So basically he kept his deck configuration. Here the blue side places the bomber guy on the left and the magic archer on the right, because on one hand it's 2 elixir and he knows the opponent will start spamming, and now he has both sides sort of covered, and now he can go in because the magic archer will get a ton of value out of almost every card that the opponent will play, and so the death push or the counter push of the enemy will not be that strong because the magic archer takes a lot of care of that. One very important thing right here will be that the e-spirit was wasted here and killed by the log, which basically means he doesn't have the e-spirit to support the mini packer with. If we look at the total elixir, we see that red side and blue side are basically equal because red side has 7 active elixir and blue side 2, and both have 6 potential elixir. So it will be quite bad that he didn't have the e-spirit. It will be bad basically regarding deck configuration, because now every time when he has the mini P.E.K.K.A, he does not have the e-spirit, which makes the mini P.E.K.K.A very vulnerable to the skeletons, which we will see now. And then he also very badly placed the skeleton barrel in front of the magic archer so the tornado could have great value. He could have placed it way more into the middle, which doesn't allow him to nader it that easily. And then he also placed the mini packer into the skeletons, which was very unfortunate. So that leaves him with a lot of damage. So the deck configuration is messed up now. Damage state is way too bad to come back, and he realizes there's no way to come back. He had to mess up the elixir ratio of Mo and through that deck configuration, but he couldn't do that, so he lost. Goodbye.